Welcome to Congress in Context, your shortcut to understanding the latest activity on Capitol Hill.
Oh, maybe not quite a shortcut. There's a lot to cover.
Huh, fair enough. Today we're taking a deep dive into the legislative and political landscape as of July 10th, 2025.
That's right.
You've sent us a stack of fascinating sources from the daily congressional records to detailed legal opinions.
Yep.
And our mission is to unpack the most important nuggets so you can quickly grasp what's happening, why it matters, and, how it impacts you.
Exactly. Our goal is an engaging, informative, and importantly, balanced look at what Congress was up to.
For everyday Americans trying to make sense of it all.
It was certainly a busy day on the Hill, a lot of movement on judicial nominations, some financial regulation stuff, and these ongoing debates over government funding, priorities, and definitely responding to natural disasters.
So we'll look at both the House and the Senate proceedings.
We will. We'll identify the key actions and try to get at the underlying dynamics that shape them.
Okay, so let's jump right into some of the major legislative developments then. What bills really saw a significant movement? What can we learn?
Well, we saw some tangible legislative progress, stuff that directly addresses recent events.
Like what?
So, in the Senate, the Filing Relief for Natural Disasters Act, that's H.R. 517,
Okay.
it amends IRS rules to modify tax filing deadlines because of disasters. That passed the Senate.
So direct practical relief for people hit hard.
Exactly. Immediate help. And then on a smaller scale, but still important, the Senate agreed to SRS 315.
What's that one?
Designating July 10th, 2025 as Journeyman Lineworkers Recognition Day.
Ah, a nod to essential workers.
A much-deserved nod, yeah.
Yep.
Acknowledging the folks who keep the lights on, quite literally.
Speaking of disaster relief, though, there's this other bill stirring up a lot of debate. The rescissions package, H.R. 4, it passed the House, now it's in the Senate.
Oh, yes, H.R. 4.
This feels like more than just numbers. It feels like a big political statement. What does rescind budget authority actually mean, and why is it so contentious?
Right, H.R. 4 is definitely contentious. So rescinding budget authority basically means Congress is voting to take back money.
Take back money that was already approved.
Exactly. Money approved for specific programs. It effectively stops that planned spending. This particular bill aims to cut immediate federal outlays.
Okay, stopping spending. But why the huge fight?
Well, critics in the Senate, especially the Democratic leader, are framing it as deeply hypocritical.
Hypocritical how?
They argue this package is being pushed to, quote, balance the debt, right after Republicans passed what they called the single most expensive piece of legislation in history.
The big tax bill?
The big tax bill, yeah, which they say added trillions in debt through tax breaks, mainly for corporations and the wealthy.
So they're accusing them of amnesia, basically.
That's the word used, yeah. Amnesia on the debt impact of the tax cuts. And the insight here, I think, is how these proposed cuts in H.R. 4, things like local news funding, foreign policy aid, they're actually a tiny fraction of the federal budget.
Really small percentages.
Tiny. But they become these highly charged symbols in this much larger fiscal and political battle over, who pays and who benefits.
So H.R. 4 is a major battleground.
Definitely a fiscal and political one, yes.
Okay. Beyond the bills actively moving, what about new ideas? Any new legislation introduced this week that caught your eye, maybe signaling future priorities?
Oh, yeah. A whole wave of new bills hit the floor. And they do reveal some emerging priorities, some bipartisan pushes, too.
Says.
Well, for instance, H.R. 4307 and S. 2241, they aim to direct the Secretary of Labor to train employees to detect and help law enforcement prevent human trafficking.
Interesting. So twin bills, House and Senate, bipartisan support.
Seems like it. And what's interesting here is the shift. It's not just law enforcement. It's about training other employees.
It's spreading the responsibility.
Kind of operationalizing a broader whole-of-society approach to a really tough issue. That's a key insight, I think, into how they're tackling complex problems. On the environmental front, H.R. 4325 and S. 2243. These look at the carbon intensity of ship fuel.
Maritime emissions, often overlooked.
Very often. Or imposing fees on shipping to cut emissions. So Congress is definitely focusing more on making shipping greener.
Okay. Anything else stand out?
Yeah. H.R. 4350 proposes a loan program and credits for manufacturing critical materials. That points right at securing U.S. supply chains, economic security. And then there's H.R. 4358. This one would prohibit more than one congressional redistricting after a census.
Whoa. That could have huge implications for future elections, how districts are drawn.
Absolutely. Big potential impact there.
Yeah.
And one more, H.R. 4359, to set up a grant program for automatic sprinkler systems in public housing.
Addresses.
Safety concerns.
Got it. Lots of new ideas bubbling up. Now, let's talk about where the political sparks really flew this week. The sources point to judicial nominations being particularly sharp.
Oh, indeed. The Senate spent a good chunk of time on two key nominations. Okay. First, Jonathan Gould of Virginia. He was confirmed as Comptroller of the currency. The vote was 50 yeas to 45 nays.
Okay, confirmed. And the second?
The second one saw the most intense debate. That was Whitney D. Hermandorfer, nominated for the U.S. Circuit Judge position for the Sixth Circuit.
Right. And what happened there?
The cloture motion on her nomination passed. 51 yeas to 43 nays.
Okay, cloture motion. That sounds procedural, but important. For our listeners, what exactly does that mean for the nomination, and what were people arguing about?
Right. Passing cloture is a major procedural step. It basically means the Senate has voted to cut off debate.
And the filibuster attempts.
Exactly. It stops any filibuster attempts and clears the path for a final confirmation vote, likely very soon. It's a strong signal the majority plans to confirm her.
So what was the case for her nomination?
Well, majority leaders were really singing her praises. Called her President Trump's first judicial nominee this term, a home run pick.
High praise.
Yeah. They highlighted her academic record, magna cum laude from Princeton, valedictorian at GW Law.
Impressive credentials.
And extensive clerkships, including for 3 current Supreme Court justices. They really emphasized her commitment to the rule of law, interpreting the Constitution based on its original meaning, and, avoiding judicial activism.
Applying the law, not making it from the bench.
That was the core argument, yes. Yeah. Her role is to apply the law as written.
Okay. And the opposing view, based on the sources, they seem to be hammering on very different criteria for what makes a good judge.
Precisely. The minority leader hit back hard. They allege that for President Trump's judges, quote, loyalty to him is often the main criterion, maybe not experience or independence.
So, challenging her qualifications.
Directly. They pointed to less than 10 years of legal experience and noted she hadn't served as the sole or chief counsel in a trial that went to a verdict.
Okay.
And they also brought up her past work on sensitive issues, reproductive rights, transgender rights, anti-discrimination policies, accusing her of supporting partisan outcomes.
So, a fundamental disagreement about the role of a judge.
Absolutely. It really showcases this deep ideological split in Congress over what they look for in judicial appointments. The very essence of the judiciary's role is being debated.
Beyond the courts, the sources also show some really strong language about the Secretary of Defense.
Yes.
And how the administration is handling the conflict in Ukraine. What's the insight there? Does this signal instability?
Well, the Democratic leaders certainly didn't pull any punches. They voiced serious concerns about Secretary Hegseth, calling him an embarrassment and a liability.
Strong words. Why?
It stemmed from Hegseth, apparently, twice haphazardly canceling vital weapons shipments to Ukraine.
Canceling weapons shipments?
Yeah, decisions that were then walked back by the president himself. This whole episode was labeled amateur hour.
Wow.
And it led to questions about disorganization at the Pentagon and even whether Hegseth was, quote, more interested in helping Putin.
Oof. So this points to tension within the administration.
Significant tension, yes. And it definitely raises serious questions about U.S. foreign policy stability and, the impact on key allies, especially at such a critical time.
Okay, another lively debate mentioned in the sources revolved around something called the gaming tax. What happened there? Why did this seemingly niche issue cause such a fuss?
The gaming tax. Right. This discussion centered on S-2230. It's a Senate bill meant to fix a specific provision in that big tax law we mentioned earlier.
The One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
That's the one. So previously, gamblers could deduct 100% of their losses from their annual taxes.
Okay, standard practice.
Right. But the new law only allows for a 90% deduction.
Only 90%. So, wait, if your losses equaled your winnings...
Exactly. You could end up paying taxes on money you actually lost.
Seems odd.
Senator Cortez Masto from Nevada certainly thought so. She championed the fix, calling it a ridiculous gaming tax.
And she blamed the process.
Yeah, she argued it was a result of new, complex budget rules that were hastily put in place just to get the larger tax bill passed. An unintended consequence.
So it sounds like legislative Tetris, like you said before, trying to jam pieces together, and this was an unexpected outcome.
That's a good way to put it.
So why didn't the fix just pass easily if everyone sort of agreed it was a problem?
Well, the effort to pass the fix quickly, using unanimous consent, it got blocked.
Blocked? Why?
It highlights how these things get tangled up. One senator, while supporting the gaming tax fix itself,
Okay.
wanted to modify the request. They tried to add an exemption for qualified religious institutions from a university endowment tax.
Ah, trying to hitch another issue onto it.
Exactly, arguing that provision was also unfairly stripped out of the original bill because of the same procedural rules.
So a seemingly simple fix gets bogged down in debates about other corrections.
Precisely. Even when there's broad agreement on the underlying problem, legislative maneuvering can prevent a swift resolution. It really pulls back the curtain on the process.
It really does.
Yeah.
But as complex as domestic policy gets, our sources also reminded us of these enduring global challenges Congress deals with. What moments from the Senate floor provided that wider perspective this week?
Yeah, there was a really crucial piece of context. A senator took to the floor to commemorate the Srebrenica genocide in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
4 years after it happened.
4 years later, yes. And the senator specifically highlighted renewed calls for ethnic separatism now in Bosnia, saying it dredges up painful memories.
Mm-hmm.
And emphasized how the Dayton Accords, while they stopped the killing, essentially just froze the front lines and enshrined ethnic divisions.
So not just looking back, but connecting it to current tensions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this commemoration happened right amidst ongoing debates in Congress about U.S. intervention, foreign aid budgets, troop deployments.
Right.
So it brings the fragility of peace, the effectiveness of international agreements, right back into sharp focus. It underscores why foreign policy remains so relevant.
That's a powerful reminder. I was also really struck by the details in that GAO legal opinion you mentioned. The barred owl management strategy.
Ah, yes, the owls.
It sounds like a niche wildlife issue, right?
Yeah.
Can you walk us through why this seemingly small environmental decision has such big implications for how government agencies actually operate?
It's a truly fascinating insight into government transparency and oversight, actually. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the FWS, they issued this record of decision for managing barred owls. Basically, a plan for the lethal removal of barred owls in parts of Washington, Oregon, California.
To protect the threatened northern spotted owl.
Exactly, and prevent declines in California spotted owls, too, because the barred owl is invasive and competes with them.
Okay, so that's the plan. What's the GAO issue?
The crucial part is that the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, determined this FWS decision. It's actually a rule under the Congressional Review Act, the CRA.
A rule, and FWS didn't treat it that way.
Correct. FWS did not submit it to Congress for review, which the CRA requires for rules.
So why does the GAO ruling that this specific owl plan is a rule matter for us, for the listener? Why is it important for government accountability?
It raises this really important question. What exactly is a rule that agencies have to send to Congress? The whole point of the CRA is to strengthen congressional oversight of agency rulemaking.
Right, let Congress have a look.
Exactly. And the GAO found that even though this owl strategy doesn't force anyone to participate,
It's voluntary removal.
people can choose to implement it or not, but the GAO said it still substantially affects the rights or obligations of non-agency parties because it lays out very detailed requirements for anyone who chooses to implement it.
Ah, so the requirements themselves make it a rule even if participation is optional.
That's the key insight here. The GAO ruling clarifies that basically any agency decision setting detailed requirements for anyone outside the agency, even voluntary programs, now clearly falls under the CRA.
Wow. That significantly broadens Congress's ability to review executive branch actions.
It does. It gives Congress much broader leverage to challenge agency actions, no matter how seemingly minor. It's a big deal for accountability, reminding us that even niche decisions are subject to scrutiny.
Fascinating. Just quickly, on a procedural note, we saw things like the designation of a speaker pro tempore, committees being discharged from bills. How do these routine actions fit into the bigger picture?
Yeah, those are the nuts and bolts, right? The stuff that keeps Congress actually running day to day.
So, speaker pro tempore.
That's just someone appointed by the Speaker in this case, Representative Christopher H. Smith, to preside over the House when the Speaker can't be there.
Yeah.
Standard procedure.
And committees being discharged, like for H.R. 504 and H.R. 1765.
Think of that as like an express lane for a bill. Normally, a bill goes through committee for detailed work, hearings, markups.
Right, the usual process.
But sometimes, maybe it's urgent, or maybe there's a political reason, Congress can use this procedural move, discharging the committee, to bring a bill straight to the floor, to the full House.
Bypassing the committee review.
Exactly. It allows the committee of the whole House to consider it directly. These procedures plus things like citing the necessary and proper clause as the constitutional basis for new laws. That's the machinery that lets Congress adapt and respond, often quietly.
Got it. So, looking ahead now, what do all these discussions and votes signal for upcoming legislative battles? What broader trends should we watch?
Well, that intense debate over judicial nominations. Expect more of that. It foreshadows continued clashes over President Trump's appointments.
More cloture votes coming?
Definitely. Cloture motions were already filed for nominees like Luke Pettit for Treasury and Anthony Tata for Undersecretary of Defense. And the Senate Majority Leader flat out said they'll keep filling the, roughly 50 current federal bench vacancies.
So expect more partisan fights over judges.
Absolutely. And the fate of H.R. 4, that rescissions package. Keep an eye on that in the Senate. It'll be a huge indicator of where fiscal policy is headed and whether there's any room for bipartisan cooperation or not.
Right. We also heard about that proposal for FEMA reform tying directly into the recent natural disasters. What kind of changes are being proposed there?
Yeah, that was S 2247, the Disaster Assistance Improvement and Decentralization Act, or AID Act.
AID Act. What's the goal?
It aims to fundamentally reform FEMA. The idea is to decentralize decision-making, give more power to local communities for long-term recovery.
Instead of micromanaging from D.C.
Exactly. This comes right after those devastating floods in Texas. Tragically, 119 deaths confirmed, including 36 children just in Kerr County.
Terrible numbers.
And 170 people still missing in that county alone. So the bill tries to address these widespread frustrations people have with FEMA being, quote, too slow, too bureaucratic, and conflicting.
Given the rise in extreme weather, this could be a major reform effort.
Could be huge, yes. Definitely one to watch.
Any other key areas we should be keeping an eye on? Maybe foreign policy or global engagement?
Absolutely. We saw the president formally notify Congress about continuing the national emergency regarding Hong Kong for another year.
Okay.
And also the revocation of Syria sanctions. Those actions signal ongoing shifts, adjustments in U.S. foreign policy. Plus, look at the new bills introduced, like the Pacific Partnership Act and the Belay Pacific Act.
Focusing on the Pacific Islands.
Right. It highlights this growing bipartisan focus on strengthening U.S. engagement and security in that region, which is obviously a critical area in global geopolitics. Important indicators of where diplomatic and strategic efforts are headed.
This has been a really comprehensive deep dive. Thanks for walking us through all that. Now, for you, our listener, maybe you want to stay informed, maybe even get involved. What are some practical steps?
Well, first off, to actually find and read the bills we talked about today, like H.R. 4 or S 2230, you can always go to congress.gov.
Congress.gov.
Yeah, that's the official website for U.S. legislative information. It's a really powerful tool. You can track specific bill numbers, see who sponsored them, check their current status. It gives you direct access to the source material.
Excellent resource. And what if you wanted to actually contact your representatives about some of these issues?
You can find contact info for your specific House representative and your state senators right on their official websites, house.gov and senate.gov, respectively.
Easy enough to find.
Yeah, and many also have local offices you can call or even visit. But for just tracking what's happening day to day, congress.gov is still your best bet. Follow committees, see upcoming votes, even read the full Congressional Record if you're really ambitious.
So keep an eye out, especially for future votes on the Hermandorfer nomination.
Definitely.
And that ongoing debate around the rescissions package, H.R. 4, those will shape some significant policy. This week, we've really seen those deep divisions on display, but also, like you said, those underlying processes that just keep the government machinery moving. It's a constant interplay, isn't it?
It really is, exactly. You have these big public debates, judges, budgets, but then you have the detailed work like managing the barred owl strategy or these very personal, urgent pleas for disaster relief funding. And it all reminds us that policy isn't just abstract. It's about real, tangible impacts on people's lives through the tax system, environmental rules, how we respond to emergencies.
It all connects back.
Yeah. It highlights that constant negotiation of power, of values within our democratic system. Sometimes it's loud and obvious. Sometimes it's happening quietly behind the scenes.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something to think about. How do the very public, often really partisan debates we see in Congress every day, how do they ultimately shape those underlying, maybe less visible processes that really dictate how laws get made and implemented? And what role do you, the listener, play in that complex interplay? Think about the ripple effects of every vote, every procedural move, every seemingly small agency decision.